Here are our top 25 quarterbacks for 2025 fantasy football. We're going to go in tier maker format, pros, cons, where we should draft them. Are we targeting them? Are we generally fading them? Danny, let's kick it off with the top two quarterbacks, the absolute El Jefes of fantasy football, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. We got the reigning MVP and MVP runner-up here, top three fantasy quarterback in 5 straight years, Josh Allen, not bad. And believe it or not, his 22.7 points per game last year, which is already an absurd number, was his worst since 2020. So we're getting Josh Allen basically off of like a terrible season relative to the rest of his standards. He doesn't have great weapons. That's the biggest detractor for Josh Allen. Shakir banged up. Coleman still a question mark. Josh Palmer, Elijah Moore, Dalton Kincaid, James Cook, Ray Davis. It's not an exceptional group. And you could definitely argue Lamar Jackson's group is better around him. But he's Josh Allen, man. He runs the ball 500 to 750 yards, 10 plus touchdowns on the ground. Generally speaking, whenever the Bills score any points, it's Josh Allen being a part of it like 85% of the time, minus last year when James Cook had as many touchdowns as he did.
I don't even care that he plays the quarterback position. The fact of the matter is when you can guarantee a player that's scoring you 22 plus points per game basically every single year, that has the upside to crack 25, 26, 27 on any given year, this guy needs to be an early third round pick. So my biggest confusion of this slate or of this offseason so far is how is he going at the end of the third round, early fourth round, especially considering that at that point, the wide receivers, you're basically drafting, high end wide receiver 2s on their team or, low end wide receiver 1s in mucky situations. Like just give me the guy that I can put in my lineup every week that I know is going to be an advantage over the field. You said it with Josh Allen, top 5. I mean, it's just a lock that if he stays healthy, he's going to be no worse than the quarterback for in fantasy.
Yeah, we talked about it in the Superflex strategy video. These guys were like 65% more valuable on value over replacement, standards than the back end QB ones. Not even like the bad quarterbacks, like then the other good quarterbacks, like Prescott's and Bo Nix and Jared Goff's and stuff of years past. Like these guys are just absolute animals. And 5 of the last 6 times you've drafted Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, or Jalen Hurts, you've gotten a league winner, not he's a good pick. Like, no, a league winner, a guy that was a value over replacement stud. And Lamar Jackson's no different because he was QB1 in 2024, 25.6 points per game, and he is the highest weekly ceiling of any fantasy quarterback. You got one game to win, week 17 or something. Lamar Jackson has 40-point upside against whatever defense you put against him. Despite not having a single season of 500-plus pass attempts, he's showcased 2 separate years of an elite touchdown rate, and I don't expect that to not continue because you have Zay Flowers heading into year 3. Rashad Bateman took a step forward last year. Likely he's going to be banged up at the beginning of the season, but you still have Mark Andrews, who's going to be a 10-plus touchdown type of projection, and Lamar, of course, is as electric on the ground as any other quarterback really in the history of the sport.
And we saw him post league winning, like you said, quarterback 1 in 2024, 25-plus point per game upside last year. And that was with Derrick Henry being arguably, him and Saquon Barkley, these 2 single best running backs, both in terms of volume and in terms of between the tackles efficiency. If Derrick Henry were to miss any time and we actually saw Lamar Jackson throw the ball 30, 35 plus times per game, how many fantasy points could he score? Because on top of that, yeah, sure, 30, 35 attempts, that also just increases the amount of dropbacks that he has. And if you get Lamar Jackson dropping back and taking off 7, 8, 9 times a game, if Derrick Henry, like I said, missed any time, it's easy to see a path where he can get back to that 2019 Lamar Jackson level where he was a 28, 29 point per game scorer that season.
Yeah, he was. And that season, you had Mark Ingram punching in a lot of touchdowns too. Last year, you saw Derrick Henry punching in a lot of touchdowns. They don't really have another thumper running back that if Henry went down, they would just automatically run the ball in the red zone. They might actually let Lamar run the ball in the red zone a little bit more, which we've really never seen from Lamar, which is a scary thought considering how dominant the guy actually is. Yeah, like you said, early third round, mid third round of your fantasy draft, and you're like, I don't really love Garrett Wilson. I don't really love Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't really love, let's say, Breece Hall or something, the best available running back on the board. Just take one of these quarterbacks, man. Like the league winner rate of the quarterback position is as high as it can possibly be in the 3rd, 4th round because of these dual threat dynamos that we got.
Yeah, why have to stress over, which middling wide receiver do I like here? Which, solid but unspectacular running back do I like here? Just take the superstar that you can watch on Sunday score you 25 plus points per game. And I do think that extends to Jaden Daniels if we go a tier down as well. I actually do have him in this top tier with the top 2 guys. Again, the reason why he's more so at the front of this year, we'll talk about Jalen Hurts in a second, is because you actually have Jalen Hurts as your quarterback 3. For me, what it comes down to with Jaden Daniels is like Josh Allen, like Lamar Jackson, and to a degree, unlike Jalen Hurts, The Washington offense goes by how Jaden Daniels does. The Bills offense goes by how Josh Allen does. The Ravens offense goes by how Lamar Jackson does. To me, it's like where I can see scenarios where on the flip side with the Eagles, and like, oh, Saquon Barkley ran for 200 plus yards and Hurts only threw the ball 17 times. I don't really see scenarios with those three teams can win football games unless their quarterbacks are performing at a superstar production level. And we saw it down the stretch for the Washington Commanders. I mean, we'll talk about the context in a second. They draft Josh Connolly in the first round. They trade for Laramie Tunsil, top 3-level left tackle, according to Brandon Thorne in his offensive line rankings. And they also trade for Deebo Samuel. But even when all those guys were off the field in 2024, when Washington needed it most, down the stretch, last 5 games of the season, they need to go and clinch their playoff spot. It's when we saw the most go onto Jaden Daniels' plate, and he averaged over 31 points per game. I could totally see this being a scenario where going into year 2, he takes the Lamar Jackson-like step where, oh my God, this guy's the unanimous MVP and he's scoring over 28 points per game. As much as I like Jalen Hurts, the access to that, I would say mystery box upside, but we've literally seen him prove it down the stretch last year. More so just the upside to completely lap the field is in there for Jaden Daniels that I don't see with Hurts. So that's why I do have Jaden Daniels in the tier above, but we'll talk about Jalen Hurts because he's a rock solid top 4 quarterback projection regardless.
Yeah, I just think we saw Jalen's floor last year.
Sure.
That's the difference. Jalen Hurts had 21.3 fantasy points per game on 2,900 passing yards and 18 passing touchdowns. Like he was basically useless through the air and had 14 rushing touchdowns. The tush push didn't go anywhere. He's still going to have a 12 plus rushing touchdown projection. And as I've said at least 3,000 times this offseason, I think the Philadelphia Eagles will have to throw the ball a little bit more because I don't see Saquon Barkley running for 200 yards a game. I don't see A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith only getting 5 targets a game like they were in some games this season. I really do think that the Philadelphia Eagles were a completely non-functional offense through the air for about 7-8 games at the end of last season before the NFL playoffs. And Jalen Hurts kind of got his mojo back during the playoffs. They got the monkey off their back. They have the Super Bowl ring now. I think Jalen Hurts is going to uncork it a little bit more this year. And we've seen the 25 point per game upside already in 2022 when he had a real passing ceiling to him, when he was basically on pace for a 4,000 yard season, just 3,700 yards in 15 games. And 22 passing touchdowns. I think we have a chance to get back to that. So for me, I prefer Jalen Hurts. It's a very close conversation at the 3-4 turn. I'm very comfortable taking both players, but given that Jalen Hurts goes later than Jaden Daniels as well, he has been the one that I've ended up with more.
And I think my factor is Jaden Daniels, in my opinion, does deservedly go above him. But I agree with you in the sense that if Jaden Daniels off the board, if Josh Allen's off the board, if Lamar Jackson's off the board, and you can still get Jalen Hurts at that early portion of the 4th round, especially if you're in a 4-point passing touchdown league where maybe that passing production isn't quite weighted as heavily as maybe some of the pocket passers in your league. At that point, Jalen Hurts, you're going to be a shoo-in for 700 yards and 12 touchdowns on the ground, like you said.
Yeah, for sure. So moving down to the next territory of quarterbacks, and as we talked about in numerous other videos, this is the tier of quarterback where we're like kind of avoiding it because it starts to blend together a little bit more. Whereas these top 4 guys, the Josh Allen, the Lamar Jackson types, Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts types, we feel just so much better about the passing projection or the rushing projection of those guys than we do with Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes, who make up the next tier of quarterback for us. Danny, you have Joe Burrow at quarterback 5, I'm assuming. It's basically for the same reason that all of us probably should have him at quarterback 5, which is that he has the best passing projection in the NFL. He's the favorite to lead the league in passing touchdowns. He's the favorite to lead the league in passing yards. He has the best wide receiver duo, at least at this point in time, in the NFL, both of whom have 10-plus touchdown upside. They showed it last year in the games that they played. And we don't really know what we'll get out of Yoshi Vosh, Gesicki, Noah Fant, Jermaine Burton or whatever, but it doesn't really matter because between the 2 receivers and Chase Brown out of the backfield, no team passed at a higher rate. More neutral game scripts for the Bengals would maybe be a bad thing because they were behind a lot last year, throwing the ball like crazy. But if you watch the quarterback documentary, I think Joe Burrow just not having to do everything would also kind of benefit him from an efficiency standpoint too. But he's just a pure volume play and he's a great pick. It's hard to select him when he's going around the range where the like running back and wide receiver honeypots are.
You combine that with what's potentially going to be an improving offensive line. Chase Brown really showed out down the stretch, especially as a receiving threat, something that they were missing. Zach Moss, fine pass blocker in the early portion, but we saw Chase Brown really expand that receiving game and help Joe Burrow out of the backfield. to me, it's just you equate everything, the situation, the talent level of the player, the potential game scripts that he can play. And again, that defense ain't getting any better. Hey, Shamar Stewart, Trey Hendrickson, like all that drama that's been going on the defensive side can really take its toll there. And if we're in situations where the Bengals need to score 30, 35 points just to even freaking win some of these games, Joe Burrow can pass for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns on any given week, unlike maybe any other passing quarterback in the league.
Yeah, I think the craziest thing that I heard on that documentary is I think he had like 10 games in a row with like 250 passing yards and 3 touchdowns or something like that. Like it was just an insane streak of games where he was consistently carrying your fantasy team. So again, if you get the stars aligning for Burrow again, where the Bengals defense sucks and he's just going to be throwing the ball like crazy, he's definitely going to pay off for you. But I think paying up for the highest passing projection in the league hasn't always been the most profitable fantasy football strategy. When you're not getting the rushing like you're getting with the first 4 guys, it does play itself out to be kind of, he's got to throw 4,500 yards and 40 touchdowns to pay off.
Well, exactly. We just talked about how, Joe Burrow led the league in basically every passing metric, efficiency, yards, 43 passing touchdowns. Corey, 22.5 points per game. You just mentioned in a down Jalen Hurts year, he was at 21.3, where he threw for less than 3,000 yards and threw for less than 20 touchdowns. The margin for error that you need as a pocket passer to be a 22 plus point per game scorer versus Jalen Hurts basically being there on terrible passing numbers. That is why we want Konami code quarterbacks at the top. And that's why we pay up for those guys. Because even in down years, they're still, competitive with the top passing quarterbacks.
2,900 passing yards and 18 touchdowns. And Jalen Hurts was outscored by Joe Burrow by like 0.8 fantasy points.
1.2 points per game.
Points, yeah.
And like that was with Joe Burrow being by far, like I said, the best passing projection in the league, clearly.
Yeah, absolutely insane. Speaking of good passing projections, you got Patrick Mahomes, who's obviously a very good quarterback, high pass rate, high passing volume offense as well, and you got a high neutral pace of play. The Chiefs weren't able to run the ball very well last year because they didn't have Isaiah Pacheco for most of the season, but they also didn't have any of their weapons. Rashee Rice missed the entire season pretty much. Marquise Brown missed the entire season. Xavier Worthy wasn't really relevant until like week 10, week 11, and Travis Kelce was a shell of his former self. So the fact that Patrick Mahomes hasn't been good the last 2 years from a fantasy perspective, he's like QB 13 in points per game last year with only 18.3. If he gets back to his usual passing numbers, which is like the 4,500 yard, 35 plus passing touchdown, he can kind of be like discount Joe Burrow, where you're getting him on the upswing as opposed to on the downswing. Like you have to pay up for the upswing that you're getting Burrow on. If you can get Mahomes in like the 7th round and you have like Rice on your team, you have Worthy on your team or something, I'm more fine with him than I am with Burrow, because Burrow goes more like in like the 5th round in home leagues.
Yeah.
Whereas Mahomes is like, you might be able to get him in like the 7th round or something like that. But even still, I still don't feel great about drafting Patrick Mahomes, knowing that some of the QBs going later, especially in this next year, like have a lot more rushing upside than him.
And I think that's the best way to describe it. We'll talk about the next year in a second, but I love Patrick Mahomes in the sense that I do think this is going to be a more downfield aerial attack. We do see Xavier Worthy taking a step up, maybe as a year 2 player. Marquise Brown coming back into the fold. You add some juice with Jalen Royals in the draft. Obviously, when Rashee Rice is healthy, he's going to function as the wide receiver 1. Like all the tea leaves right now are pointing. On top of that as well. You look at the running back core. Isaiah Pacheco, we are hoping can get back to pre-injury level, but if we just look at how he performed after the fibula break, I believe it was fibula or tibia. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, it was the fibula again.
It was the fibula. Like there is still a projection there. Again, I think he's going to be fine, but at the same time, is he going to be the same workhorse Isaiah Pacheco, especially in the early portion that he was starting last season? I don't think that's going to be the case. And if I don't think that's going to be the case, there's going to be more on Patrick Mahomes to lead this offense. And if we get back to a Patrick Mahomes 35 plus pass attempt per game type of player, he's got the upside to get back to 40, 45, 50 touchdowns, because we have literally seen it from the greatest quarterback in the league before.
Yeah, no, for sure. The real question with all these guys is like, do you draft them? Or do you continue hammering out wide receiver, running back, and so on and so forth? Because I don't really feel bad about Burrow or Mahomes' passing projection. I just don't know if I want to draft them relative to the rest of the quarterbacks in this next territory, because I think you can get similar projections for cheaper. In this next tier, we have Bo Nix, Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, and Dak Prescott. With Bo Nix and Murray specifically, you're getting a lot more of a rushing projection, whereas like Baker was good as a runner last year, but Bo Nix legitimately put up some nice rushing numbers his rookie season and threw for 29 passing touchdowns as a rookie and finished as like the quarterback 8 in fantasy. So it's really hard not to be excited about Nix. And that's why I have him at quarterback 7, even ahead of Mayfield. I had Mayfield ahead before, but the reason I have him ahead now is because of the Wirfs injury and like some of the other stuff going on. Godwin maybe not being back on the field right away. Dude, it's really hard to have 19.4 fantasy points per game as a rookie. At 430 yards, 4 touchdowns too. Not nothing as a runner. That's like we assume Kyler Murray would be a better rushing projection than Bo Nix, but that's about what Kyler's been giving you.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, too, that really gets me about Kyler. We'll talk about him in a second, but you're thinking, oh, Kyler, very mobile quarterback. He's going to get you, similar to Lamar Jackson, similar to Jane Daniels. Like, well, actually, that hasn't been the case since his second year in the NFL.
572 and 5 touchdowns is good, though. Like, that's what he had.
It's very good. It's very good, but it's not the 810 touchdowns that he had as a second-year player. And that's kind of like the expectation that people have had for him because that's what we saw early in his career. And I think you echoed it pretty perfectly with Bo Nix going into the second year in the system. Offense we believe in, one of the top 3 to 5 offensive lines in the league. It's like when this guy was asked to put more on his plate, he thrived. And we'll see maybe if there's a year or two, decline, because we said the same thing about CJ Stroud, sure. But it's like, if that is the only concern you have is like, oh, maybe he's not as good as he was as a rookie. Why is that a concern exactly? It's like he was phenomenal as a rookie. He was the quarterback 7 in fantasy. Even if he finishes the quarterback 9 this year, you at all disappointed in that? You took a swing on a second-year player being better than the quarterback 7, which he was as a rookie?
Yeah, no, almost putting up a 20-point per game season as a rookie. The last quarterback who did that was Justin Herbert. It's not easy to do. Last rookie quarterback, who did that was Justin Herbert.
Yeah, for sure. I'm in on Bo Nix. He's my quarterback 8. I believe in him a ton. You do have that dual threat ability. Again, maybe we do see more running back touches in the red zone specifically because they didn't really have a ground game that they trusted down there last year. Maybe RJ Harvey, maybe J.K. Dobbins could take a little bit more off of his plate. But irregardless, even if you poke holes in the profile, it's still a profile you want to bet on every single time.
Yeah, and Mayfield's like kind of Joe Burrow and Mahomes light, where it's like you just feel great about the passing projection. Yeah. Liam Cohen leaving is going to factor into the offense. If Godwin's out there, if Wirfs is out there week 1, that would help a lot for Baker Mayfield. But if he's going to be missing some of those pieces, then you got to downgrade him a little bit. I don't want to pay up for Baker Mayfield's season last year, even though him and Joe Burrow scored exactly the same amount of fantasy points per game. Like literally.
Didn't Mayfield outscore him?
No, it was exactly the same. They were both like 22.4 points per game or whatever they scored.
Yeah, on raw points, let me see real quickly. So Burrow scored 381.82. Mayfield scored 381.8. So Burrow scored
like the exact same amount of fantasy points, basically.
0.02 points on the season, not points per game. 0.02 points on the season better.
Yeah, no, they were basically the exact same. So if you want to take the discount because people are worried about Mayfield because of the Wirfs thing and the Liam Cohen thing and the Godwin thing, you might be able to get him in like the 8th, 9th round. And at that point, I'm absolutely okay taking the discount. But I do want to make sure that I'm not like overpaying for what he did last year by taking him in like round 5 or round 6, like he was going earlier on in the offseason. Murray, we kind of already talked about as well. Prescott, we all kind of expect Danny to bring up the rear here and make Dak in this tier. I personally would not have Dak in this tier. I think he belongs in the tier below, but I'll let you take it away with why you love him.
And you mentioned the pro Baker thing. It's like, Baker was phenomenal last year. I also think without Wirfs potentially to start the year, on top of that, we haven't seen another season with over 40 touchdowns. Like, I think there's a lot more how it goes wrong with Baker compared to where he was last year. Whereas with Dak, every time we have seen him healthy, you're getting 4,500 yards, you're getting 35 touchdowns. And this is by far the best situation he has had to work with in the last few years. I understand if you do want to rank him lower, I'm sure you're going to bring up, well, he has been banged up. So I would prefer the guys that I maybe am more confident will stay on the field because Dak is older, is coming off the hamstring. And I think that's fine. For me, that's not really how I evaluate quarterbacks, quite frankly. We saw down the stretch past or by 2023, he was the only quarterback that was actually keeping pace with Josh Allen down the stretch. And yeah, sure, I'm not going to say he's going to be up with Josh Allen this year. There's a reason why I have Josh Allen ranked at 1. He's tied with Mahomes for the second best odds to lead the league in passing yards, only behind Joe Burrow. You do add George Pickens there. We saw what he was able to do with a vertical X wide receiver in the past with Michael Gallup. And this is a team that's not going to be able to run the football. I fully expect, again, maybe it's not going to be nuclear Joe Burrow, 650, 700 attempt levels like we saw last year. But at the same time, this is going to be, from a neutral game script perspective, one of the highest passing offenses in the league.
Yeah, I think my thing with Dak is that really in the last 5 years, we haven't seen him go well over 20 points per game, even when he's been healthy and when he's been productive. He was like
24 after the bye.
Yeah, I don't care about the splits. Every quarterback has good splits. I'm saying on a full season, he's been barely over 20 points per game when he's hit, whereas everybody else in this tier, Knicks, I can see him because he runs and 500 plus yards and 5 touchdowns. He can get over that like 22 points per game. Mayfield did it last year. Murray has done it in years past. So for me with Prescott, I just don't think at age 32 or whatever, he's going to have his best season of his career, even though I do definitely like the weapons and I like Pickens, I like Lamb, and I like the pass volume and all that kind of stuff. I think with Dak, you're getting a great low-end QB1. I just don't necessarily think high-end QB1's within the range of outcomes for him anymore.
See, the reason why I disagree is that he's been a top 5 quarterback in the last 3 years that he's been healthy.
Right. But like I just said, 20.7 points per game. Like to give you an idea, in 2021, that would have been quarterback 11, and he was quarterback 4 on that on a down quarterback season where everyone got hurt.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, we could just point out to the fact that Baker Mayfield has 1 year as a top 12 quarterback in terms of.
But it was a 22.5 point per game season, which is much better than Dak has ever been.
He ran hot. He had 13 more touchdowns than he did in 2023.
Yeah. Again, we're obviously going to disagree, and you won't say anything negative about Dak, so we can go back and forth on it. Again, I just think he's a smaller win. That's the only reason I have him in the tier below.
Well, I think at this range, all these guys to me have a mid quarterback 1 level appeal, but they're not as, locked in as a Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes. And so again, you want to bet on Bo Nix, there's potential passing regression there. You want to bet on Baker Mayfield, maybe they run the ball a little bit more in the red zone. You want to bet on Kyler Murray. He hasn't been quite the passer that these guys have been, and he's not rushing at the same level. Like, I think you could poke holes in every one of these guys, which makes them in this tier as opposed to the Burrow Mahomes, where we feel a lot safer about those guys.
Yeah, for sure. So, and Murray, like the bull case, we didn't really mention with him. Marvin's going into year 2. McBride's obviously a stud. I think the offense in general could take a step forward. Petzig's kind of like a hot head coaching candidate. And the offensive line's starting to come into fold there. So even though Murray hasn't necessarily been great the last couple of years, he has been a quarterback 1 in points per game every year of his career. And he did rush for 572 and 5 last year, which is finally kind of, going back to the levels that we're used to with Kyler Murray. Whereas when he was coming off the ACL tear and whatnot, he wasn't really running the ball at all. So at least with Kyler running a bit more, we might never see that 810 that we saw from his 2020-2021 season, but I do think he can get back to like 650 and 5.
And I think that's my issue with Kyler is we just haven't seen him get back to that level. He has not averaged
572 and 5 is close to that.
Sure, but I mean, especially when you're combating, he has to be an 810 rusher to combat, unless you're projecting a big uptick in his passing game, which I'm sure that's part of it for you.
Is that Harrison's so much better this year and that he takes a step as a passer.
But that's what I'm saying. It almost has to happen, because otherwise he's been a sub 20 point per game scorer in the last 3 years. Now I understand there was an injury built in there, but even last year, 17.48 points per game. It's you need him to be more efficient as a passer, or he needs to get back up to that year 2 level rushing.
Yeah, no, for sure. Moving into the next tier of guys, there's a lot more there's 2 guys that are safe here and then 2 guys that are a little bit risky. You got the 2 second-year quarterbacks, Caleb Williams and Drake May. With both of these guys, you can look at when they were starters last year, they were running the ball at a pretty high rate. Like Caleb Williams ran the ball. I think he was like 5th or 6th in rushing at the quarterback position. And we all know kind of what the pro case is for him. He's now got Odunze. He's got DJ Moore. He's got Luther Burden. He's got Colston Loveland. He has Ben Johnson calling the shots. Caleb Williams is the single biggest upside swing, I think, in this territory, given the weapons around him. And if he gets back to the prospect level that we saw from USC and he plays like that in the NFL, he could really absolutely crush his ADP here. But he is the riskiest, in my opinion, of this group.
Yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up. You look at the situation, you look at the play calling, you look at the talent level that we expected out of Caleb Williams. It's he should be. I mean, if it all pays out, if we said going into the 2024 NFL draft, where do we think Caleb Williams is going to be ranked going into year 2? It'd probably be close to that, 6th, 7th rounder, maybe at the top of the 8th, 9th rounder tier. So we are baking in a little bit that, hey, this guy didn't really look good as a rookie. But if he does look a lot better in his second year because of the weapons, because of Ben Johnson, he also has a very, very high rushing floor. We saw last year, very mobile quarterback. If he puts it all together, I mean, there's no stopping him physically. It's just the mental hurdle he has to get over.
Yeah, and May's very similar. Drake May's got a lot more proven production in his first season, where we actually saw him produce basically like a back-end QB1 when he was starting games because of what he was able to do with his legs. You have 2 offensive tackle upgrades. You have a coaching upgrade, especially at offensive coordinator with Josh McDaniels. Stephon Diggs is an upgrade. Kyle Williams is an upgrade. Trevion Henderson's an upgrade. It's not what Caleb Williams has, but it is definitely better than what Drake May had last year. And Drake May, even despite how terrible the situation was objectively the better quarterback last year. I think if you watch the tape of Drake May's rookie season versus Caleb Williams' rookie season, it's not even really who was better.
Let me ask you this. Where would you have ranked Drake May in fantasy football this year if he was dropped into the Chicago Bears situation?
I'd probably rank him 7.
I was dude, I think in all seriousness, I would be having a conversation between him, Burrow, and Mahomes.
Yeah, no, like, given that he might put up 506 touchdowns on the ground, like you could definitely put 2 and 2 together and be like, hey, if Diggs plays like 90% of himself and Williams is a breakout rookie and Trevion's a beast or whatever, you can get me there on Drake May being higher than quarterback 14 where I have him ranked. He's just a little bit on the riskier side because generally speaking, I like to invest in quarterbacks that have good weapons around them in the late rounds when there's so many great options. Just give me the guys who are going to get carried along by their weapons pretty much.
He's the outlier, not the norm. Usually you put any quarterback in the exact situation he is, he's probably going to be ranked quarterback 18, 19, 20 in our rankings. We just believe incredibly in Drake May. He was a guy that we thought had a superstar Josh Allen level ceiling. And because, again, I'm not going to say he is going to 100% guaranteed be viewed on the same level with Josh Allen after this year, but I do think he's a dark horse MVP candidate. I do think he's a guy that if he puts it all together from a physical talent perspective, from a rushing propensity perspective, can be the next Josh Allen. So because he has that, even if that's the 99th, 100% or 100th percentile outcome for Drake May, the fact that that alone exists and we have seen Josh Allen with less than ideal situations thrive as a fantasy football quarterback, I will not be able to quit Drake May because I do see the similar things that made Josh Allen develop the way he did in Drake May's game.
Yeah, and then these other two guys I can kind of group together because we kind of know what they are. Brock Purdy's been a top 10 quarterback in back-to-back seasons. And last year, we saw him rush for 323 and 5 on the ground, which is something that we never really saw from Brock Purdy going into the year. He only threw 20 passing touchdowns and 3,800 passing yards and still finishes QB 10 in points per game with 18.6 fantasy points. So that was with Ayuk going down, with Juwan Jennings is like his number one receiver for most of the year. And then, of course, George Kittle doing his thing, but no McCaffrey, no Pearsall really for a large portion of the year, at least not the Pearsall that people expect this season. So Purdy with upgraded weapons from what he had last year, he can get back to that QB6 kind of 19 fantasy points per game that we saw from him in 2023. And then Jordan Love, 19.5 fantasy points per game, top 5 quarterback in 2023 as well. We talked about it on numerous occasions that he, like from the very first game, wasn't healthy the entire year. And we can see him get back with better weapons. Golden coming in, Reed into his third year. Dobbs still there, obviously, and Tucker Kraft going into his third season with Josh Jacobs still running the ball. Both of these guys are just like rock solid projections. I feel so good about both of them.
Shanny systems, both are trusted from an efficiency perspective. Both have good surrounding talent. So, yeah, I think Jordan Love, Brock Purdy, they would be very, very strong bets. If you miss out on the mid-tier quarterbacks, if you miss out on the top-end quarterbacks, you want to pair one of those guys. Plus, I mean, heck, if you wanted to pair Jordan Love plus Caleb Williams or Brock Purdy plus Drake May, I would love to get two of these guys, or I'd love to get one of the guys in these tiers followed along with maybe a safe projection or a volatile projection based on what you selected in the next tier. So if you grab Brock Purdy, maybe you swing for a Trevor Lawrence or JJ McCarthy. If you grab a Drake May, maybe you go a little safer and you grab a Justin Herbert or Jared Goff next to him.
Yeah, I talked about it in the league winning quarterbacks video, in the number one draft strategy video. Like, if you're not spending that much draft capital at quarterback, you can afford to take 2 swings and then by week 2, week 3, reevaluate what you have. It's like, hey, my breakout candidate Trevor Lawrence or my breakout candidate Drake May are performing like breakout candidates. I don't need to roster Brock Purdy anymore. I don't need to roster Jared Goff anymore, whatever the case is. So this next group of guys, we have Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, JJ McCarthy, and Jared Goff, like we kind of just made reference to. Trevor Lawrence, high upside player this year because of Travis Hunter's presence, because of Brian Thomas Jr.'s presence and Liam Cohen coming in. And then JJ McCarthy, I mean, we see what's around him. He's got Justin Jefferson, the best receiver in the league. He's got TJ Hawkinson, a top 5 tight end in the league. Jordan Addison, one of the better number 2s in the league once he comes back from suspension. Kevin O'Connell had this team throwing the ball like crazy last year. We don't know for sure if that's going to keep up, but given that Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason, probably one of the weaker points of their offense, and their offensive line is really more built to pass protect than it is to run block, I feel pretty good about JJ McCarthy's projection. So those two guys, again, volatile swings, but you feel good about what the ceiling can be with either of them.
So it's funny because the way I kind of group this tier as a whole, it's like if JJ McCarthy hits, JJ McCarthy can be like Jared Goff plus more mobility. If Trevor Lawrence hits, Trevor Lawrence can be like Justin Herbert plus more passing volume and more mobility. So it's like you got the bird in the hand here with the safer projections. The Justin Herbert, is an elite level quarterback. Jared Goff, he's surrounded by elite talent. It's like Trevor Lawrence and JJ McCarthy after the season can kind of be that, except maybe with more upside, which is kind of why, because the other two are more safe, we have them in this tier, but we do acknowledge that if JJ McCarthy and Trevor Lawrence hit, it's probably going to be comparatively higher than what Justin Herbert and Jared Goff hitting would be.
Yeah, the only one I disagree with here is that I actually do have Justin Herbert in the tier ahead because of some of the comments we've heard about him trying to run the ball more.
Yeah.
Like that's something that can really raise his ceiling. So that's why I have him in the tier right behind Drake May with Brock Purdy, Jordan Love, Caleb Williams, and then I also have Dak Prescott in that tier. So Justin Herbert for me is the one guy that I don't think belongs in here because I think he's like, obviously if Lawrence hits, like you said, he can be like a better version of what Justin Herbert represents. But I do actually like what Justin Herbert has around him. I like McConkey. Keenan Allen can move the chains. Trey Harris can stretch the field. QJ can create some big plays. Gadsden out of the seam busting tight end position. Then of course Hampton can contribute out of the backfield. Losing Slater sucks for sure. For the rest of the season.
And that's part of it for me.
Yeah, that definitely hurts him. But I do think he could put up 450 rushing yards this year, which is something we haven't really seen from him much in his career, even though we know if he had to, he's like as good of an athlete as Josh Allen. He just doesn't run like Josh Allen does.
Yeah, well, like, I mean, if we look down the stretch, so obviously we've mentioned this split so many times. Weeks 1 to 7, 31st in pass rate over expectation. You know what that coincided with, Corey? It coincided with him having an ankle sprain. After that, if we look week 8 on in terms of his rushing splits, we do see, so week 8, 4 carries for 49 yards against the Saints. Didn't have a big game against Cleveland, but then 9 for 32, 5 for 65, 4 for 29. It's like, is he going to give you Lamar Jackson level rushing? No, but if he can give you 30, 35 rush yards per game, that's going to be a top 5 to 10 quarterback mark.
Yeah, and over that same stretch, like you saw 24.1, 24.4, 23.2, 24.4, 28.0. Like he had like 6 really good performances too, where he was like a high-end QB1, top 10 quarterback, top 8 quarterback on the week. So yeah, Herbert, also a guy that I'm definitely monitoring. All of these guys have their merits. And like Jared Goff, like objectively played like an MVP candidate for like 15 games last year.
No, he was very good. So the fact that we're talking about him as like, maybe if you're struggling, you grab a upside quarterback, you need someone to play week 1. It's like, okay, but like Jared Goff also threw 37 touchdowns last year. Like Jared Goff is still no slouch in his own right, even if we have concerns maybe with the offense transitioning over to John Morton from Ben Johnson.
I actually think it's almost good for Jared Goff, to be honest, that it's not Ben Johnson.
I wouldn't argue good. I definitely wouldn't argue good.
I have him higher than JJ McCarthy and Trevor Lawrence for the sole reason that I think that John Morton is going to open up the offense, and we're going to see a little bit more Jameson Williams bombs this year than we're going to see Montgomery up the gut in the red zone.
Potentially, but I'd also argue more sustained success on drives is not going to be there because they also lost Frank Ragnow as well. Like I think there's a possibility their interior offensive line could struggle.
For sure. Yeah. The Vegas still thinks they're going to be a top 5 offense, though. And if they're a top 5 offense with more volume, I think Jared Goff actually can be just as good as he was last year, which was like 19 fantasy point per game quarterback, which would be a huge value at quarterback 18 100%. To 20 where you're getting them.
100%. And speaking 19 points per game, it's like, could we see the guys in the tier after reaching that? Yes, but do they have more concerns, whether it's in terms of their job security, whether it's in terms of, potentially struggling out of the gates? Like, I think there's a lot more question marks with this here. I mentioned job security because, Justin Fields does leap off the screen. Yeah, sure, he signed a 3-year extension, but at the same time, Justin Fields is not known as the most accurate quarterback in the world. Justin Fields also runs the ball a ton. It's like, yeah, when he is on the field, he should be able to score you a top 15, top 12 point per game level. Well, who's to say he doesn't get banged up? Who's to say that he doesn't get benched out, right? Like, compared to the quarterbacks that are ranked above him, he has the shortest leash on his job.
Yeah, no, for sure. And Michael Penix and Stroud are the guys that I have ranked at the top of this tier. And the reason for that is because I think both of them kind of get there the same way, which is that they're kind of like cheaper Jared Goffs, where you're probably just looking for a passing projection. Ideally, I don't have to rely on just Michael Penix or just CJ Stroud as my quarterback 1 in a regular 1 quarterback managed league. If they're my quarterback 2 in best ball, quarterback 2 streamer kind of option for managed redraft, that feels a little bit better because when Michael Penix plays the Buccaneers at home in Atlanta in week 2 or whatever, am I going to say he's a top 15 play that week? Like probably, you know what I mean? It's just that when he doesn't have a good matchup, I probably don't want to be starting him. I don't think a guy like Stroud or a guy like Penix are going to be like matchup proof type of guys this year.
And that's part of it too, why I do not want to take the 5th quarterback off the board, why I don't want to be the one taking the 6th quarterback off the board, is I either want to just pay up for guys that are no matter what, no matter the matchup of them, no matter the matchup of an alternative option, they are going to be in my lineup. And that to me is the top 4 quarterbacks, because I can very well make the case that in a down Mahomes matchup and in a high Michael Penix matchup, Michael Penix might actually be the better start that week.
Yeah, and especially when you factor in that some of these guys are going to run, like you're taking the upside swing on May, on Williams, on Lawrence, on Herbert, some of the guys that could run more, that they are more matchup proof. That's why like Penix and Stroud are hard guys to go after and feel comfortable with every single week because they are primarily just passers.
Well, it's like you're going to play them in the nut scenario. It's like, oh, guess what? They're in a game with a 53 over under environment and they're at home and they're favored by 6 points. Their offense implied for 30 that week. It's like, okay, maybe that's like a lot of optimistic stuff, a lot of optimistic metrics I'm pointing there. But if you explain that in all week and like, oh yeah, that's why they're my quarterback 8 one week, like I can see the vision to it. Whereas like with those top 4 guys, like you can make that case for Penix and say, well, Jaden Daniels is going to rush for 80 yards and throw for 300 this week. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, there's nothing you can do about those guys. Stafford would be way higher than this if he wasn't hurt right now, because I actually had him like above Lawrence, Herbert, those type of guys before. Just primarily because of like he's kind of just the exact same projection as Dak if he's healthy, which is that he has 2 really good receivers and he's going to throw the ball like crazy and be in a high projected scoring offense. Like, please tell me and explain to me the difference between Matthew Stafford and Dak Prescott if Stafford's healthy.
Stafford has not thrown for over 30 touchdowns in 3 years, but I do agree with you that the upside, given the context of the current offense, would have lent to his most pass attempts since that 2021 year. Because if we look at that 2021 year, I mean, obviously the Rams won the Super Bowl. We saw the Rams actually operating at a higher passing clip, 601 pass attempts that year. And in that season, we did see 41 touchdowns from Stafford. So my argument would be we haven't really seen the offense as opened up compared to 2021 since then. But I do think when they are fully healthy, we do see more passing attempts than maybe what we've seen in 2022, 2023, and 2024.
Yeah, for sure. And then these other guys, Tua is going to be a good matchup dependent, QB2 that you can throw into your lineup. The reason he's down here and not like, because you can make the argument he's just the same projection as Jared Goff for the most part. It's just that you don't feel as good about the Dolphins offense right now as you did a calendar year ago, which is why Tua was kind of going in that like quarterback 13 to 16 range a year ago. And now he's going down more in the early 20s. Bryce Young, I think, has a chance to really break out this season. The rushing upside that we saw from him, especially at the end of the season. Plus, you add in T-Mac. You have Leggett going into year 2, Coker going into year 2, Thielen's still there. Obviously, Hunter Renfrow, for some reason, getting some buzz, as well as an ancillary piece, Chuba Hubbard, Jatavian Sanders. Like, Bryce Young has a chance. It wouldn't shock me if he put up like a QB 11 in points per game season one bit.
Yeah, I agree with you with Bryce Young, quarterback 21 in my rankings right now, but we did see the upside anticipatory throws in the preseason game, really good connection with Ted Roy McMillan. And I mean, the upside there, maybe Coker gets a little bit better. Maybe Leggett actually stays on the field and doesn't fight people. Maybe Adam Thielen gives you, productive looks like he has in these last couple of years. Like you can really squint and see this Panthers receiving core being one of the better performing units compared to expectations this year.
Yeah. And then the only other guy in this territory, the top 25 quarterbacks for us, is the rookie Cam Ward. And part of it is just that we're putting a little bit of respect on the fact that he's got a big arm and can move a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't actually expect the Titans to be very good. I don't expect them to score a lot of points this year. I don't expect Cam Ward to be like QB 10 in points per game this season, but there's always the mystery box that he comes out and he's a way better quarterback prospect than all of us thought. You know what I mean? Like that always exists when you're the first overall pick rookie who's going to start all the games and you have some pieces around you. It's not like you have nothing around you. So got to put some respect on it. The only other honorable mention that misses this list for me is that I would say whoever is starting for the Indianapolis Colts is probably on any given week. Let's say Richardson starting this week, DJ starting the next week. On any given week, the Indianapolis Colts starting quarterback, whoever's starting, is probably going to find their way into this territory as well.
Yeah, and then my answer would be Geno Smith. I'm a little bit higher on him compared to you are. I also think this represents a situation with Brock Bowers coming in, Ashton Jetty coming in. Like, I just think the quarterback upgrade can't be stated enough for the Raiders. It's more so a take that I think Geno Smith may be one of the more underappreciated quarterbacks in the league. And I do think he has the opportunity to really thrive with the weapons core there.
Yep. And then as far as other starters, like Sam Darnold would be up close near this range, Aaron Rodgers, like Russell Wilson, like there's probably like, you definitely don't want to be relying on guys like that unless it's for a 1 week, bye week fill-in kind of situation. You don't want to be relying on guys like that. My favorite way to play the quarterback position, as you made reference to, is grab one guy who's a little bit more volatile, who has a high ceiling. Maybe it's Kyler Murray, for example. And then you grab another guy later, Jared Goff, Tua Tagovailoa, somebody who's a little bit safer in case Kyler Murray kind of crashes and burns. That's my favorite way to kind of play the quarterback position in fantasy this year.
I might have to go back down to the flock league and just pair up Dak Prescott and Drake May yet again.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, as I made reference to in the best draft strategy video too, like do not be scared of these top 4 guys. Like they are absolutely the real deal. And you should be willing to pass on the wide receivers and running backs in the round 3, early round 4 in case of Jalen Hurts range.
I'm not even joking. If you have to take one of these guys as soon as the 301, the 302, the 303, I have them ranked there because, quite frankly, when I compare them to the 16 point per game, 17 point per game wide receivers, the 17, 18 point per game running backs, it's like, yeah, those guys are fine, but just give me the guy that can literally break fantasy football. Give me the guys that I think can score 25, 26, 27. I even mentioned, like, there's a ceiling for any of these guys where the offense all on them, their offense goes as they go, where they score 29, 30 points per game. Like, I think it's crazy to even contextualize that number. But, dude, like, why can't Lamar Jackson go back to 2019 level? Why can't Josh Allen score 50 touchdowns from scrimmage? Like, those guys are just true unicorns.
They are. And managed leagues, having an every week starter is also a big advantage. Plus, you beat your opponent by scoring more points than them. And these guys score 25 points a game. Like,
dude, just ask Joe. I mean, look at his run in the Flock League last year. Look in week 14 to clinch a playoff spot. Who were his leading scorers? Oh, he beat me because Josh Allen scored 52 points. It's like there are only 3 or 4 quarterbacks that can even access 52 points in a week.
Yeah, like Jared Goff would have to throw like 8 touchdowns to do that.
Yeah, and not turn the ball over and throw for 600 yards. It's like I can't overstate just how valuable these guys are.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Value over replacement is everything there. If you don't get those guys, definitely try and pair up a duo at some point in your draft. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the QB tier list. We'll come at you tomorrow with the tight end tier list. We're in Austin, Texas, doing the Flock League draft this week. We probably just got to Austin as we're dropping this. We're going to be doing some live streams throughout the week, streaming some underdog drafts, probably some dynasty decisions teams and whatnot too. So stay tuned for that. We'll have the tight end tier list tomorrow. We'll also have the running backs and wide receivers throughout the week as well. So definitely stay tuned for all of that stuff. The season pass is live. If you want our draft guide plus the draft guides of all your favorite creators that are in the Flock League, check that out. That will be linked down below in the pinned comment. Promo code FSE on flockfantasy.com. $35 August through January. You'll be covered in the fantasy football season of 2025 with the draft coverage, with the in-season coverage. You get some trade question and start sit question vouchers. Plus, you also get those rest of season rankings, weekly rankings, access to the My Teams feature, the trade calculator, and everything that you guys will need come in season time. So with that being said, peace out, and we'll talk to you soon.